Hey, what's up, everybody? Tonight, we're going to be talking about hill training and specifically downhill training. The last video I made, I forgot to mention that downhill training should be a major part of your hill training regimen. And so we're going to explore that a little bit, and I think you'll find it useful. So stick around and we will jump right into it. Hey everybody, I am not going to have any trail or running footage tonight. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of rain over here in my part of Ohio, my corner of Ohio. I'm hoping that the rain stops soon so that I can get out and do some hill training. But until that time, we're just going to be right here in my basement talking about hill training. And tonight, I want to talk specifically about downhill training. I think it's an aspect of hill work that people mostly forget about. In fact, I had kind of forgotten about it until I was thinking about what my next installment of this mini-series was going to be. So tonight we're going to dig into that. But before we do, if you like my videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video. It definitely helps my channel. And if you really like my videos, hit the bell so you're alerted when I have new videos come out. Appreciate all your support, and it's really been fun the past few months to see a little bit of growth in the channel. I'd like to give a shout out to Dishman T for his comment on my Cincinnati Reds hat. Go Reds. Once a Reds fan, always a Reds fan. It's been pretty rough the past few years, the past few decades, quite frankly. And I live about a half hour north of Cincinnati, and I'll always be a Reds fan, have been my whole life. So shout out to Dishman T. Thanks for stopping in. Also want to give you a quick shout out to John Knowles for commenting on our last installment of the hill training series. He says, good topic, something that I think a lot about. I can say living in both rolling country, Kansas, and big mountain country, Colorado, it's hard to simulate big mountain running. And he goes on about that. He says that he mostly trains in foothills during the winter and then tries to get in the mountains later on. So that is a good point. It is very tough where I am too, here in Ohio. It's generally a pretty flat state. Thankfully, near my house, I do have some hills. If you've seen some of my videos, you can check out one of them here at the upper right-hand corner. I have a metro park, a couple metro parks near me that are in the woods, have some good rolling hills and some pretty technical terrain, which helps me with my hill training, but it's not the mountains. So that's definitely a challenge that I have as well. So thanks, John Knowles, for commenting and giving your input. And that brings up a good point. If you have any interest in commenting on the videos, it is a good time to kind of get into a discussion, and I appreciate that. So it's a good way for us to kind of learn from each other. Now let's get into this topic of downhill training. I did a little bit of research and found a few things that I think could be useful for you. First of all, trainingpeaks.com is a pretty nice training platform. But what they say about downhill training is that it's shown to improve your knee extension strength, and it also improves your ability to change direction. So, and they point out that that could be useful on technical trails. And I have to say, I think the first one definitely has been true for me, that it improves my knee extension strength, because by doing the hill work, it definitely, and downhill training definitely strengthens my quads, especially, which I think has a lot to do with that knee extension strength. As far as the ability to change direction, I guess I would agree with that too, because as you're going down a hill, especially a technical terrain hill, you're having to constantly, if you've ever run hills like that, because of the speed that you pick up, sometimes you have to constantly be watching where your foot placement is so that you don't trip on something or get your foot entrapped and hurt yourself. So I think that I would agree with that second point as well, that Training Peaks makes about downhill training. So I also looked at Training Peaks for some training plans to help someone with downhill training. And one example that they have is that they say, after a good warm-up, find a short hill, something with similar terrain to the race you're doing. Start at the top and descend for 20 seconds, working on technique and form. And they emphasize the fact that it's not about hammering down the hill, but trying to be smooth and efficient. So, of course, that makes my training sound totally wrong, because I just got done telling you how I like to fly down hills. But they're trying to emphasize that to improve your form, to take your time, which makes sense too. I do think there's some value in learning how to move quickly down a hill, though. They recommend walking back to the top and then descending for 40 seconds and then increase your time. That's interesting. Okay. So they say increase it to 60 seconds, 80 seconds, 100 seconds, 120 seconds. So that's just an example from Training Peaks, and that brings up a good point. For any style of running, you can find a training plan or an idea for practice anywhere on the internet. So what you need to do, though, is make sure it's something that fits you and your running style, and then apply it or try it out. You know, you may try it and hate it and decide that it's not helping you. So that's always something to remember when it comes to training for a specific element or a specific part of your running style, and trying to improve that. So let's talk about my experience personally with downhill training. During this training block, getting ready for my spring 100-miler, I'm going to try to do some of that, focusing on the downhill. But I can tell you one example of a time that I learned my lesson from not preparing well for downhills and not knowing how to properly go downhill in a long race. So I talk a lot about the Fat Dog 120, but it was fall 2019, so it's been over a year now, about a year and a half. And so during that race, I think a big reason that I DNF'd was because at about mile 20, there was I think an 8 to 10 mile segment of the race that just is straight downhill. It was a pretty average grade. I'd say probably, we're not talking about a super steep grade, but it went on for miles and miles and miles. And I think it was about 8 to 10 miles. And I was so excited about the race that I just bombed down this hill. I went way too fast. I was passing people right and left. I still remember a couple of people saying, "Oh, what's the rush?" We're in a 120-mile race. So me, the idiot, decided I would try to pass a bunch of people. Well, I DNF'd that race. It was about mile 73. And at that time, part of the reason was I was not used to the kind of pain that you feel in that kind of race. I was super sore, but my quads and my hamstrings were totally blown out at mile 73 with 50 miles remaining. So, and I think a large part of that was that 8 to 10 mile segment where I was just going crazy down this hill. That's my personal story about not training specifically for downhill and not knowing how to race going down a hill. I think in the future, I definitely will slow my pace. I think that was a big part of it. I think that overexertion just did me in. So learn from me. Don't do that. And if you get a chance, try some downhill training. There's a bunch of resources, of course, online. Training Peaks is one, as we just went through. So I hope this was helpful. I really hope to get back out on the trails soon, very soon, instead of being in my basement talking about running. I'd rather be running. So let's hope for that rain to stop, and let's get back out and train. Thanks again. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like it, subscribe. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you in the next one.